Hi, it's OSJ here with a video that has been poised for nearly 2.5 years. Way back in December 2019, Retro Indie News announced that Puzzle Bobble was coming to the C64. The screens looked great, but there was no playable demo etc, so all we had to go on was the screens. ACIED, NM1564 and HEND were trying to make this as close to the arcade as possible, and as we never got a Puzzle Bobble on the C64, a lot of people including me were very excited about this. It all seemed to go quiet after that for about a year, at which point I was honoured to be approached to do some playtesting on the game during the development stage. I say development stage, the game was awesome even when I first got it. There were some bugs though, mainly with the aiming for me, but the coder wasn't happy. He wanted it to be better, closer to the arcade. Obviously at this time we were deep in the pandemic and the game sort of went on hold and a lot of people forgot it was even announced, but a few weeks ago I got the final version sent to me and I have to say I was blown away at just how close this comes to the arcade. I've put the C64 footage side by side like I do in my arcade comparison videos, and even from the off here you can see that they have even gone to the trouble of making the Neo Geo startup screen, right down to the pixelated glitch that I'm sure we've all seen when starting Neo Geo games on MAME. I just can't believe how good this looks and sounds, but the real gem in this is that it plays almost identical to the arcade, right down to squeezing bubbles in, which like in the arcade is a skill that is learned over time. As you can see side by side, this is what I would say is as close to the arcade as any C64 game has ever been. And then there's the sound, which coming out of the SID chip I actually prefer over the arcade. The levels all match the arcade, the game supports keyboard, joystick and paddles, which I haven't got a paddle, but I did see Hayes Maker 64 playing this on Twitch the other night and he says it works great. I'll leave a link to Hayes' channel in the description, as I assume most of you are here because you love the C64 and he is definitely the premier C64 streamer on Twitch. Okay, so let's get down to the real reason we're here. Is this the best C64 arcade port ever? Well, it's got some real competition from the likes of Commando Arcade, Bubble Bobble, Ghosts and Goblins Arcade and Donkey Kong Jr. As you can see, 3 of these 4 games are actually recent, which just shows that the C64 is still getting quality games made for it. Okay, so right, let's get down to it. The only real game that this has to compete with for me is Donkey Kong Jr, as that is a game I previously put top in the best C64 arcades port video. Right, so first off the bat I have to say that as far as like for like arcade ports go, Puzzle Bobble takes it, as the work they have done to make this as close to the SNK cabinet is awesome. Whilst Donkey Kong Jr is still great, it has a wrong aspect ratio, and while that doesn't take anything away from the gameplay, it still means that it's a big difference in looks from the arcade. And that takes us to the gameplay. For this one I'd say they are neck and neck, as both are great playing games and feel very much like the arcade, although some levels on Puzzle Bobble seem to be a bit confined to try and get the bubbles up through the gaps as easy as they are on the arcade. Sound wise, well, Donkey Kong Jr wasn't the best arcade game for sound, to be honest, and the C64 pulls it off as it didn't have much to do, but on Puzzle Bobble it's a truly great achievement that the NM1564 has managed, as I actually prefer this over the arcade version. Graphics wise I'd say they're also on par, as both are brilliant and very like the arcade, so I guess it all comes down to the overall feel. One of the main wins for me on Puzzle Bobble is the 2-player mode, which we can see here. It's just so good, and as with the arcade it's fast and frantic and adds a totally different dimension to the game. I didn't think that this would be a feature in the game, but it is, and they have done it perfectly. Okay, so I'm not going to insult anyone's intelligence here and say if you didn't know better you would think you were playing the arcade, because that would be a lie. But considering that both of these are on 8-bit machines, both these games are a credit to the people who worked on them. But, and this has nothing to do with my involvement in the testing, I have to say that Puzzle Bobble takes the crown for me, and I'd like to say that this is as close to an arcade as the C64 has ever got. The game was released last night on CSDB. It was accidentally released last week with a couple of bugs in, which had now been resolved, and the link to the game is in the description. Okay, that's it for this short review. I'm really pleased with how this game has turned out, and it just shows that the love for our Commodore 64 is still there. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the game, and please remember to drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more great retro content. Oh, and if you want to support the channel on Patreon like these good people going up the screen right now, get on over to my Patreon channel where you can pledge for as little as $1, which will get your name in the end credits, video requests and more in the future. Till next time, this is OSG signing out.